Hello and welcome to Keep Right on a Birmingham City podcast brought to you from us here at Birmingham Live. I'm Brian Dick and I'm joined as ever by my colleague, co-host and friend Alex Dicken, fresh back from his travels to East Anglia, where he saw Birmingham City produce, I think, what we're going to conclude, without spoiling too much, the best away performance of the season in a 2-1 victory away at Norwich. Alex, how are you doing?
Good, thank you, Brian. I think you can safely say it was their best away victory performance of the season. Fantastic first half, effectively took the game away from Norwich in that first 14, 15 minutes, two really, really well-constructed goals, and then had to dig in second half, probably for longer than they would have hoped, because Norwich kind of put it on them straight from the restart. But three richly deserved points and leave them right on the cusp of the playoff positions. So a good weekend all round.
Yeah, you've said on the running order, what a lovely day. Was it just the result that made you come away with that impression, or was there something else you'd like to tell everybody about? Maybe your newfound fan that sat in front of you.
Well, to be fair, I've only been to Norwich once before, and I really enjoyed it then because the food in the press box and the facilities are always really comfortable. And that's kind of just what I look for, that and functioning Wi-Fi. And last time Blues didn't win. This time they did win, so that made it better. But there was this lovely lady in front of me who seemed to just want to supply me with food throughout the game. She gave me sweets before the match, and at half-time she turns around and throws a Kit Kat onto my desk. So, lovely hospitality, and I didn't agree with some of the chants that Blues fans were singing towards the Norwich fans, because they were lovely people as far as I'm concerned.
Alex, how many times have I told you not to accept sweets from strangers?
Well, I was absolutely starving, so yeah.
Excellent. It was a statement win, wasn't it? Chris Davies said that afterwards. I think everybody is using the same phrase, statement win. I tweeted in midweek that after Wrexham had dropped points and drawn, that it was, time for Blues to start winning the game that matters. And that's exactly what they did. First time, I think, as you say, since Gary Rowett's time in October 2015, they've won 3 on the road. But this feels, without being disrespectful, like a proper away win. It's not Oxford, it's not Sheffield Wednesday. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I mean, if they hadn't have won one of these, next 2 or say 3 away games where they're playing teams that are in and around them, or in the case of Norwich in brilliant form, then we could have used it as the wins over 23rd placed Oxford and 24th placed Sheffield, already relegated Sheffield Wednesday, as sticks to beat them with, really. So a really, really good away when Norwich have won their previous 4 at home and have found some real form under Philip Clement. And in the second half, we could see why they've had the results they've had recently, because they do look like a very good championship team, even without a number of players they were missing. So, I don't think Blues will have many better away wins than that between now and the end of the season, but hopefully they'll have a few more.
Yeah, indeed. You made reference to the 2 early goals. Obviously, that set the narrative, didn't it, straight away? Interestingly, they both came down that right flank. Bright Samuel playing balls in behind for Priska for the second one, and Carlos Vicente for the first one. Did you feel that was something that Chris Davies or the coaching staff had identified, the spacing behind?
Definitely in that kind of inside right channel position between the left centre-back Cordoba and the left-back Vicente. Quite early on, there was a long ball. I mean, literally seconds into the game, there was a long ball up to Priska, and he flicked it on, and Vicente was making that kind of out-to-in run in the inside right position, and he got through, and he just couldn't quite get the ball past the goalkeeper. But within 4 minutes, Blues were ahead via a ball down the right of Vicente. He cut inside, ignored Marvin Duck's great finish. They clearly had that tactic up their sleeve, because they tried it time and time again. And every time Asai Samuel got the ball in that position, he looked up to see if there was somebody spinning in behind Cordoba. And Priska did it fantastically. First time ball across for Ducks for the second. So, we've said this before about Chris Davies. He just kind of light up on a tactic sometimes, and he likes to go for it a lot, doesn't he? It's relentless in the way that it happens. I mean, there was that ball from Cochrane over to Gray before Christmas that we saw an awful lot, that kind of straight ping over the top and Gray being down the left. There was that corner that they seem to do every single game, but they didn't do it against Norwich, to be fair. So, this might have been something just to specifically target Norwich, I think, but it's something they clearly worked on.
Yeah, I think we even saw that last season, didn't we, in League One, when Chris Davies finds a strategy that works, he milks it and milks it and milks it until the opposition close the door, which is fair enough, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think Chris Davies said this as well. That tactic will work because Vicente is a winger who will run beyond the line, won't he? I don't think Blues have got many others like that are willing to gamble and run in behind and wait for the ball to or make the run before they get the ball. Vicente, that it's feels like a new weapon in the Birmingham City armoury, doesn't it?
Yeah, a winger who's direct, who can get himself into goal-scoring positions. I mean, he scored 10 goals before he joined Blues for Alaves in half a season. And when he got through on goal, he looked like a player who knew what he was doing, to ignore Marvin Dux for the simple cut back in the middle and to go himself and find the angle at the near post. An excellent finish. And actually, interestingly, he pointed out after the match, he was asked how it felt to get his first goal. And he made the point, attackers are judged by numbers. So it's great to get off the mark because I'm going to be judged on how many numbers I get between now and the end of the season. So he's a winger who, wants more than just kind of to look good on the eye. He wants to put the ball in the net and get assists as well.
Yeah, indeed. Talking of assists and August Priska, he's next on the running order. Before we come on to his contribution, sort of with the ball at his feet, you and I both alighted upon the same statistic independently. He won more headers than anyone else on the pitch, and that's such another valuable tool that Blues didn't have before January, before the transfer window. What have you made of Priska?
Well, Blues haven't had that since there was a prime Lucas Djukovic, really, have they, Brian?
No.
That kind of big physical striker who can take the ball in and win headers like that. I know Dykes had the size, but he wasn't that player, really, for Blues.
We are going back when you're talking prime Lucas Djukovic, and I think that is fair to say because, God love him, for the last 2 or 3 years of his career, maybe even longer, Duke was plan B, wasn't he, rather than plan A. So we are going back to, several seasons to a point where, Blues can go more direct. And if there was one concern about spending a decent sum of money on a young lad that's only done it, only in inverted commas in the Swedish league, it would be the physicality. And actually, that's the thing that's been impressive so far, isn't it? Amongst many other things, but that has also been impressive. Yeah,
that is the thing he's got. And I mean, he bullied Cordoba first half. He peeled off onto him. They clearly sensed that he was the weak point in that Norwich back line. And he won header after header. And, he had a couple of chances, really. I mean, the one that he did really well when Gray crossed it in to bring it down in his chest and pulled out an acrobatic left-footed overhead kick that the keeper tipped over. And then there was a shot deflected from Gray that he tried to divert goalwards, but the keeper got a bit of a fist on it as well, and he went out for a corner. He just, as we said at the beginning, he seems like a game centre forward, someone who's willing to put himself in harm's way to score goals. I think he will score goals because the ball does seem to, gravitate towards him in the box on set pieces and things like that. And in the last 2 games, we've seen how direct Blues have been, because they've got him up there and they can just go long and it causes problems, be that through a goalkeeper or one of the defenders putting it in there. So, it's a great new weapon. Chris Davies pointed out afterwards that it just means that when they're under pressure, they can go over the press, can't they, to the big man? And he is very good with his body. He holds the ball up, brings it down in his chest if he doesn't win the header. So, just looks like a decent striker. And, you want the first goal to come quickly, I think. You want it to cover the next few games because then, that's something that might weigh on his mind a little bit. But as far as his actual play, he's been really good.
Yeah, yes, he will be judged by goals, but I think at this point, we can judge him on performance levels and contribution, and it's been excellent, hasn't it? I thought he did really well against Leeds. To be fair, not necessarily frontline Premier League centre backs, but centre backs who had played top flight in more than one country. So really promising from Priska. Like you just want that first goal to come, but. Really interesting stuff. Was it mildly surprising that he was given the start, do you feel? Because obviously it was Stansfield that went onto the bench.
Yeah, I thought he'd start one of the two away games at Norwich and Millwall. I thought maybe Millwall, because of the physicality they're definitely going to bring him. We'll obviously speak more about that later. I was a little bit surprised, but then it was, we thought about it afterwards, and Stansfield did play 120 minutes against Leeds, and he left it all out there, didn't he?
He was dented by the end, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. So there's probably, they've got access to far more information than we have, and Stansfield, they've had a day less to recover, haven't they? So maybe he was in the red and maybe at risk. He only came on with 20 minutes to go against Norwich, didn't he? So he didn't play a lot of the match. But yeah, I presume he'll come back in for Millwall.
Yeah, that was in the red is one of my favourite modern day coaching terms. I heard a new one listening to Chris Davies' interview the other day. The corridor cross, is that one you're aware of?
No, I've not heard that. Explain it to me.
Well, I mean, it's not massively sort of cryptic. Basically, it's a winger goes down the side and puts the ball into the middle through, I guess, the corridor of uncertainty.
A corridor of uncertainty. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
That sort of thing. Anyway, yeah, you actually though, albeit it was Blues attacking play that sort of caught the eye. You went for James Beadle as your man of the match, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, I think we're probably going to have a little bit of a disagreement about it now, but. He made 4 quite good saves during the game. Made that the first one from Toure.
I've talked you down here, haven't I?
You have, yeah, and I'm going to stick to it. To be honest, I'm going to own it. So he made the first save from Toure in the first half. A good save. He had to move his body across the line, tip it over the bar. One you'd probably expect him to make. Then he made the double save not long into the second half. I can't remember who it was. It was Toure and Fisher, I think. The right back came in on the second one, didn't he? The second one was a really good save. You'll say to me the first one that he maybe shouldn't have pushed it into the area, back into the area.
Don't. I can talk for myself. Don't.
I'm stealing your fun, but yeah.
Go on.
But again, very good double save. And then he made another save. I think it might have been Chrisen, a left-footed shot, and he's palmed it away. So 4 pretty good saves in the game. I thought he was commanding. He commanded his box well. He kicked pretty well. There was one switch diagonal first half where he found Gray and got him into a good position. I think that's the one that led to the Prisk chance. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's as good a performance as we've seen from James Beadle during this loan spell.
Okay, I'm not going to hate on the guy. I just, as you have already said for me, I don't think it needs to be a double save if he doesn't push the Toure. Was it a header? Or was it a shot? I can't remember. The Toure, it pushes it straight back out into the danger zone. If that goes to the side of goal, it doesn't need to be a double save. But and that is a tendency of his that I'm not a big fan of. The ball going back rather than being turned aside from goal, being pushed back into where there are players and attackers. But yeah, he did his job at risk of sounding like Roy Keane.
He makes saves. What do you want to say?
Yeah, exactly. No, but it's more that is a fundamental, to use Chris Davies' word, but it is also about commanding the area and inspiring confidence in the defence, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and I mean there was this debate, wasn't there? Kind of after Allsop played so brilliantly against Leeds with his feet, that we had on last week's podcast as to is Allsop's ability with his feet going to outweigh Beadle's probably slight edge with his hands? And Chris Davies made it clear actually post-match that, again, he has always, to be fair, said goalkeepers there to make saves. What they do with their hands is first and foremost what I'm going to judge and what I want them to be. And he did say that, that's the fundamental of being a goalkeeper, to make saves, and James Beadle does that. So I don't think there was ever any doubt that he was going to bring Beadle back in. I think it was just kind of bit of a conversation starter last week, given how well Allsop had done and the level of distribution that he had provided against Leeds.
Alex, moving on, do we need to take an L on Jonathan Panzo yet? You and I both felt he'd be another body, and he had another good game, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I've been very surprised. Of the 6 signings that Blues made in January, I thought he was the one that was going to be the bit part player as cover, especially with Jack Robinson just coming back to fitness. But he played so well against Leeds that Chris Davies clearly just thought he had to play him against Norwich. And again, he was fantastic. He hasn't put a foot wrong now in 180 minutes. Although maybe there was a little kind of head down for the Norwich goal that he could have done a bit better with. But if that's really nitpicking here, I think he's been excellent. Not just in terms of his defensive contribution on the ball, he's so good. You know, the Panzo roll, rolling the studs on the ball to bring it out of defence in tight situations. That's become like a little bit of a theme of the last 2 games. He's so composed, picks passes into midfield, uses Clara well, uses Goalkeeper. He just looks like a good player. And I think we probably should have known that he had this in him because, he's come through the Chelsea academy. He's played for England up to a good level, youth level. Maybe just hasn't pieced it together consistently throughout his season, and particularly in his 3 championship. I'm going to say, with Forest, Coventry, and Cardiff. But now at 25, he does, in his first 2 games, he's looked like the real deal.
And there's a balance, isn't there? I think to the Panzo Clara combination more than has felt like a balance at any point this season.
Yeah, and I mean, we said on the last podcast it wouldn't take much for Chris Davies to move Neumann out again, and it took nothing. The balance is clearly key here, isn't it? Chris Davies has liked the left footer throughout his time as Blues manager. We talked about the passing angles that the left footer brings. It's kind of giving Clara, an old lease of life, to go back onto his favoured right side so he can carry the ball forward again and give Blues that option. They just look better balanced. They look a better team at the moment with Panzo in the back line. The only question mark for me is can he do it consistently, because he hasn't done that before in the Championship. He's got to string 15 games together, hasn't he? If there's 13 more this season. So hopefully that is the case. Yeah,
indeed. As I said last week, let's not anoint him, Beckenbauer on just the evidence of 1 game. Let's not do it on the evidence of 2. But similarly, you can only look at those 2 performances and say they've been very good. Could have been so different, couldn't it? Had Blues signed Harry Darling last summer, as they were so desperate. Well, I don't know if desperate is the right word, but they were certainly trying to sign Harry Darling, and he had his pick of suitors and eventually went to Norwich. It's not been a great move for him, has it? If the evidence of Saturday is anything to go by.
I mean, no, he obviously went there for Liam Manning, didn't he? Having worked with him previously at MK Dons. And I was quite disappointed by him actually in the 4-1 at St Andrews, the reverse game earlier in the season, and he was a sub for this. And, they've had injury issues as well. So he was a sub there. He came on for 10, 15 minutes, and the most notable contribution he made was a sliced clearance that almost put himself into trouble with Jay Stansfield breathing down his neck. So hasn't been the season that he would have wanted. Probably not helped by Manning losing his job halfway through it. Whether it would have been better for him if Blues had signed him or whatever, or if he'd gone somewhere else. I think Wrexham, Stoke were also looking at him. But he's certainly not worked out moving to Norwich.
Yeah, indeed. And again, the risk of being wise after the event, I think it made a lot of sense, didn't it? A player of Harry Darling's physical stature and technical ability, it made a lot of sense to come in and be the Ben Davies replacement in the summer. But yeah, football can take you in odd directions. All of which leaves Blues after a bit of a madcap weekend in 7th. They were 6th at one point on Saturday. With Wrexham, I think they were drawing with Ipswich at the time. Wrexham ended up beating Ipswich 5-3, so they're on 51 points. Blues are 7th in 49. Derby lost at Watford, so they dropped out of the top 6. They're on 48. Watford beat Derby, so they're on 48 as well. Preston lost to a last-minute Aaron Cashin created goal to Blackburn on Friday night. They're on 48. And then you've got 3 teams on 47, and then we're down into the bottom half of the league. So it is ridiculously tight. Observations on how things are going at the moment, Alex? I think there's probably, you've got some stats about the form table that will help us draw some conclusions. Yeah,
I mean, Blues are top of the form table, aren't they? With in the last 6 games, with 4 wins, 2 draws. Southampton have done the same. And to be fair, they've come strong again under Tunderecker after a really bad run, similar to Blues over Christmas. So there are a lot of teams, I think even down to Stoke in 16th now, I think 7 points between themselves and Wrexham in 6th.
Yeah.
There are teams like Swansea have been in great form and still really haven't made any inroads up the table. They're still, I think, 15th. Yeah. And they've been in great form under Matos since changing manager. So, yeah, there are a lot of teams in it. Chris Davies is giving it I'm not looking at the league table, which obviously everyone kind of is. But I don't think it's that important to look at it at this stage, is it really? Because Blues know they need to probably get to 72 points to give themselves a chance of being in the playoffs at the end of the season. So that's 21 to maybe 24 points more they need, I think, from these final 13 games.
13 games, yeah.
So yeah, it feels realistic now, doesn't it, Brian?
It does. They've given themselves a chance. This good run of results has put them back into the picture, definitely. I mean, obviously that they're 7th, but more than just looking at a black and white league table, it feels like there's momentum, doesn't it? And that momentum has come, I think, from the transfer window. And to use a phrase that you, I think, are about to coin, it feels like Blues have reinvented themselves, doesn't it?
Yeah. With the signings they've made have given them a real chance. They had absolutely no chance after Watford New Year's Day. They've taken 3 points from a possible 21, I think, in December in that Watford game on New Year's Day, and looked dead and buried in the playoff race. I think they needed something at that time. They needed about 40 points from 19 games or something. And that looked, that's like top 2 form, isn't it, really? So we were kind of writing them off, but fair play to them. They've had a very good run of form. They've got to maintain that to the end of the season to finish in the playoffs. But if they do that, then they're going to probably be the form team going into those playoffs, which, the form team does tend to fare well. So yeah, it's a really exciting time to be following Birmingham City again.
Yeah, indeed it is. And I think helped by the fact that, Preston lost, Derby lost, Wrexham had before beating Ipswich, they'd drawn and lost their previous 2. Blues seem to be the team, I'm going to absolutely curse it now, but Blues seem to be the team that aren't really dropping many points. The teams sort of around them, as I said earlier, around them goes down to 13th or 14th place in the league. They're all they haven't got the consistency which Blues have got. So yeah, it is very interesting. The bookies have Blues as 6th favourites to go up. Let's rephrase that. They are 6th in the odds to finish in the playoffs. That's what I mean. So basically, that means they think they'll finish in the playoffs, doesn't it? If 0% is mathematically impossible and 100% is guaranteed, Alex, where is the playoff-ometer for you at the moment?
By direction of travel. And the fact they've got these teams, they've got to play Wrexham at home, they've got to play Bristol City at home, they've got to play Preston at home, they've got to play Sheffield United at home. They've got more home games than away games as well. I think that's important to mention here. They've got, I think they've got a couple more home games than away games to play still. So, and we know how good they've been at home. I'm on about 60% for playoffs now. I think Hull's slipping up a little bit. They've taken 1 point from the last 9.
Yeah.
I never thought they'd be able to maintain it because I wasn't convinced by their squad at the start of the season. And we've seen the route they've gone down in January. They've taken players like, someone like Lewis Kumas who couldn't get in the Blues 11. So that Blues could quite easily catch them, I think, as well. And other teams could as well. Watford have got an excellent group of players. If they can put it together and find form, they could quite easily finish inside the playoffs as well. So, there's a lot to play for, but I'm feeling quietly optimistic. Well, I say quietly because I've just said it. I'm feeling optimistic at this point that the Blues will be able to reach the playoffs, but you never know what's going to happen, I suppose.
I don't know if I can quite get to 60. I think I will just... I mean, even if you say about 51, that means you think they're more likely than less likely to get into the playoffs. And I don't know if I feel that yet. Quite yet. I'm lagging behind you on that one. If you do have a percentage that you would like to let us know, stick it in the comments because it'd be interesting to take the temperature of this. Alex, as we have said, Milwall away on Wednesday night. Milwall lost 3-1 at home to Portsmouth on Saturday. And what are your observations about that game, other than to say, obviously, it's going to be very difficult. And I think Millwall are very much a traditional Millwall side, aren't they?
They are, yeah. They're probably the most physical team in the Championship. We mentioned this when they came to St Andrews early in the season. They've got a lot of big players. But Birmingham City have now got a lot of big players. You know, for the first time this season, the journalist next to me in the press box, Cara Road, when Blues went up for their first score, he said, they're a big team, aren't they? And I said, you should have seen him a couple of months ago. They couldn't field 3 players over 6 feet tall. So
they literally couldn't. They were waiting for Thor to get back fit again, for defensive corners almost.
Yeah, exactly. And now, I mean, including Beadle, the 6 of the 11 that started at Norwich were over 6 feet tall. So I've got to think that it'll be a similar kind of 11 at Milwall, because you're not going to then go and put the smaller players in to play the giants, are you? So, I think the key playing Millwall away, especially given they've just lost to Portsmouth in a game they would definitely have expected to win, is to not give anything silly away in the first half an hour. Is to try and, if you've got to keep it tight and keep it at 0-0, if you can nick a goal, all the better, because, you know, we've been to the Den enough times to know that crowd can turn on their own team as they can be hostile for away teams as well. So I think the key here is to not do anything silly, not do what Birmingham City would have done before Christmas and fallen behind in the first 15 minutes. Yeah,
indeed. Last time Blues were there, I think they lost 1-0. Was it a Tanganga last minute or something like that? Yeah. But we also have seen them win down there, so it's not out of the realm of possibility at all. Just to say, Millwall have won the most headers, or of the highest average aerials won per game of any team in the Championship. So yeah, I think it is going to be tin hat time a little bit. But again, is a draw enough? Bearing in mind that they picked up 3 at Norwich.
Yeah, I felt like because they drew to West Bromwich Albion, I felt like they needed to win one of these 2 games. I think a 4 points return from the 2 games would be good. 6 would be phenomenal.
6 would be great, because then it gives you a bit of breathing space facing Middlesbrough, doesn't it, on Monday night?
Yeah, and I mean, if we looked at those 3 games and we said 5 points, would have been fantastic. So if they could get a point and then maybe take a point off Borough as well, that'd be decent. If they can get 6, 7 points, then yeah, brilliant.
What changes are we making? All the 6-footers are playing, obviously.
I wouldn't be surprised if Marvin Duksh was taken out, but he doesn't really count as a 6-footer, does he? He's like a I'd probably take him out and put Jay Stansfield in, because I think Stansfield is the sort of player rested at the weekend would thrive on this sort of game, this sort of atmosphere. Yeah. He likes these games, and we saw against Leeds that Stansfield and Priska had a pretty decent partnership as well. So I'd be in favour of doing that. I think it probably depends on how quickly Priska recovers. The extra day being a Wednesday game will help, I think, because he's not played many, 70 odd 80 minutes of football since November when the Swedish league ended. So I think that will be key. Aside, one other change that I think might happen, I think Osman could potentially, actually 2 other changes. Osman could potentially come in for Gray, I feel. Yeah.
You can almost rotate those now. I know your tweet generated quite a bit of debate when you sort of wrote a piece saying how close it was, and it seemed to be quite a lot of people still felt Damari was a long way ahead, but freshness is important as well.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I thought it was a little bit harsh that Osman had lost his place really when he had been one of Blues' best players in the previous 3 or 4 games and hadn't done anything wrong really.
Got to stick the ball in the onion bag, Alex.
But that's the key, isn't it? And he was erratic against Leeds when he came on. And Gray is just that finished article, isn't he? He's got that refinement when Blues are in those attacking positions, that if the chance falls to Damari Gray, you'd probably back him over Osman. So, but for this one, I bring Osman back in. I don't think you lose anything defensively because he's such a hard worker, and he gives you that, obviously, a massive element of unpredictability going forward as well. And he's the sort of player that could really take a right back apart. The other change, if we're saying that Stansfield and Osman could come back in, I think would be Doyle to come back in.
Do you? Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. I think Asai Samuel was very good first half, obviously involved in both goals against Norwich. But I think he probably went off maybe 10, 15 minutes too late. I think he was really flagging against Ahmed and probably needed to be changed. So I wouldn't be surprised if he dropped out and Tomoki Iwata played at right back. But having said that, that physical midfield did work really well, and Blues are probably going to need that in away game. So it's
just going to say that I'd be less comfortable without Iwacha in the middle of the park up against Billy Mitchell and their team of scrappers. Interesting to see. I think Davies will make changes. I think he'll make at least 2, maybe, but no more, between 2 and 3. Just to sort of other business. Let's move on to that before we wrap it up. Chris Davies gave you a very interesting answer about when you were questioning him about Kyogo before in the pre-match press conference. Didn't he? Tell us what he said and the conclusions you draw from it.
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of go in depth on Kyogo, really, and obviously he's been forced to a striker for the last few weeks. Obviously, he was injured for the Norwich game, but even before that, in the 3 games, I think 4 league games since he scored that goal against Sheffield Wednesday, he's played 9 minutes and been an unused sub on 3 occasions. So he's clearly a long way down the pecking order now, and it feels like Davies has moved on. And, this time of season, do you remember a couple of years ago when there was a centre-back who'd fallen down the pecking order in Kevin Long, and Blues allowed him to move to the MLS, to move to Toronto. And that is a transfer window that is still open. And Kyogo has this desire to play for Japan at the World Cup. Feels a little bit unrealistic if he's going to be sitting on Blues' bench for 3 more months. So the only way for him to achieve that goal is to move now, and the MLS is the most attractive league that is still open. And I put that to Chris Davies, and he did say there's been talk of that. That was his answer, and then he caveated it by saying, "I'm quite happy with the squad I've got, and this is where we are. Yeah. But if the player wants to explore something, then obviously we'll have to work with him." But yeah, it feels like he's happy where they are. But I wouldn't rule out Kyogo leaving in the next month or so. I mean, he's probably going to he might return and get a good idea that he's still quite a way down the pecking order and can just not see a route back into the team, which, especially given the way Priska has started, I don't see him getting a sniff. So, I mean, they've got a month, I think, left in the MLS transfer window. I think there are a couple of other transfer windows open as well. But that one looks the most likely, I think. If an MLS team looked at him and thought, yeah, we could have him for the second half of the season or for our season, I think it'd have to be a permanent deal, obviously.
Yeah, I think it's time for Blues to be a little bit selfish on this one, because if they are going to, let's say their season will be extended by 2 or 3 games because of the playoffs, we really are putting the cart before the horse there, aren't we? But, I just don't think you weaken yourself at this stage of the season with, it's not quite on a knife edge, but it's still in the balance, isn't it, where Blues are? I wouldn't be a fan of leaving yourself with Priska, Stansfield, and Dutch. We'll call him a striker for the sake of this, but he's not really, is he? He looks much happier in the number 10 role. And to be fair to Davies, he's fashioned a system now where they are getting good performances and goal contributions out of Dutch. So yeah, I'd be reluctant to let Kyogo leave, even if it feels like a roll of the dice when Kyogo's on the pitch, doesn't it? To an extent, but I still think you need that roll of the dice.
Yeah, I mean, it's if they could play to the end of the season in the final 13 games, and Kyogo might not get on the bench in many of them because they seem to have got 5 set subs now. You've got your 2 wingers, the striker who doesn't get on, Tommy Doyle, the midfielder who doesn't get on. And then you've got a right back change as well. So there's your 5 subs. And I feel like Kyogo isn't going to get much of a look in. However, if Blues are chasing a game, as you said, Brian, and they need an extra striker on the field, they can quite easily not bring on that midfielder or right back and stick Kyogo on. And you do always feel like he is going to get a chance. And he has had a lot of chances, hasn't he, this season? He does get chances. The problem has been, and why Chris Davies has shoved him down the pecking order a little bit, is that he hasn't taken them. And there's only so long you can use that as a positive. Always getting chances. In the last 3 or 4 times I've asked Chris Davies about that, he hasn't used it as a positive because there's no point getting the chances if you're not going to take any of them.
And, at the risk of being hypercritical, this season would be very different if Kyogo had scored the chances that he was expected, and I use that expression advisedly, to score. Then, Blues would be 6 points further on or potentially even more, wouldn't they? Right, let's stop kicking Paul Kyogo. Blues are after a set piece coach, aren't they? What, am I right in saying that in terms of defensive set pieces, Blues are pretty much middle of the pack in the league, and attacking, it seems they're a bit better now.
Yeah, I mean, at the start of the season, they were pretty terrible, weren't they? They had,
yeah.
I think in the first maybe 7 or 8 games, they'd scored 1, conceded 7. Then they had that flurry of goals against Portsmouth, 3 set-piece goals, and followed that up with a few more. I think they've scored 11 from set pieces in the Championship, conceded 12. But I think that's from who scored, and I'm sure they count the Fatawu goal for Leicester earlier in the season. That came from a throw-in. So as far as I'm concerned, they're 11 and 11, which is even. That's fine. You obviously want to make gains in that, and Chris Davies will always point out how important set pieces are, because I think he says roughly a third of goals come from set pieces. And Blues could be better. They've got a big team now, haven't they? As we mentioned, so they probably need to punch their weight a little bit more. And Jonathan Grounds has been kind of taking charge of it for the last, I'd say, 12 months since Ashley Cole left, and before that, Ashley Cole was doing it. I think Ben Petty does some of the defensive work as well with the set pieces. So they are looking for a specialist coach. A lot of clubs have gone down this route, haven't they, in the last few years? I think Arsenal have had a lot of success from it in the Premier League. So teams want that specialist set piece coach now to just focus purely on working on set pieces, analysing the opposition and what they do, and obviously coming up with the innovative routines that could hopefully lead to a goal. So they're looking for that person. I'm told that it's not going to impact anyone in the existing coaching staff. So you've still got, below Chris Davies, you've got Ben Petty as the assistant manager, 2 coaches in Tom Huddleston and Jonathan Grounds, and obviously goalkeeping coach Mike Taylor. This is, as far as I'm aware, going to be an extra body, not taken away from anything.
Yeah, okay, interesting. Right, Alex, thank you very much for your time. Thank you all for listening. Do hit like, subscribe, leave a comment. It's always great to hear from you all. All that remains from both of us is to wish you a keep right on.